Good morning, everyone, and can I wish you all a happy new year, and welcome to this meeting of Mid-Suffolk District Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor Andy Mellon, leader of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I will be chairing this meeting. Can I first just remind you of some domestic arrangements? Please ensure that your microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers or hold separate conversations whilst others are speaking. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. And finally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app, so please could Cabinet members make sure they are logged in and ready to use the app. I would also like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items, of which there are none today. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. And I will now move to the agenda, please. Item 1 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Eben, Councillor Pearson and Councillor Penny.
Thank you. Item 2 is to receive declarations of pecuniary, other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Any to declare? None. Thank you. Item 3 and item 4 are the minutes of the last two meetings. So item 3 is paper MCA/2437 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of December, and those minutes are in the table papers. I have one typo just to report. On page 7, paragraph 62.5, it says spit when it should say split. So that's just a minor correction. Any other points for accuracy of the minutes? Councillor Winch.
Yeah, on 1.4 it says cost subsidy. I think it should be saying cross subsidy.
Cross subsidy. Okay, we'll make that correction. Any others? If not, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Winch. I'm happy to second that. So the governance officer will now conduct the vote on those first minutes.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 5 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to item 4, which is the second set of minutes from December, paper MCA/24/38, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of December 2024. And those minutes again are in the table papers. Are there any points regarding accuracy of those minutes? If not, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Weller, and seconded by Councillor Stringer. The governance officer will now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 5 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We move on to item 5, to receive notifications of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Item 6, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
Item 7, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Thank you. Item 8 is the forthcoming decisions list. Are there any comments on this? No? If not, then we move on to item 9. So this is paper MCA/24/39, council housing rents and service charges. And I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Housing and Property, Councillor Winch, to introduce the report.
Thank you. So this report outlines proposed changes to the rent and service charge policy and a proposed approach for setting service charges going forward. The timing of the report is important because we need to have this decided before our HRA budget, and we need to feed this into our HRA business plan. Appendix C lays out a very good summary of what service charges include, but it covers things like communal cleaning, maintenance, health and safety, communal electricity, water and fuel, community furniture, lighting, laundry, grounds maintenance and sheltered housing management. And it also includes personal utility charges like electricity and water, which probably seems a little bit odd, but these are situations where the council are basically the intermediary and just passing on utility costs. And the basic principle is that service charges should be paid for by the tenants that benefit from them, not from the general rent pool. The logic of this is not fair on tenants that don't receive these services to subsidise other tenants, and the exercise forces the council and the impacted tenants to review value for money from the services provided. And I thoroughly agree with the thrust here and the principle that we're trying to achieve. I'd like to thank Rob and his team and Jenny for a lot of detailed work that has gone into this. A lot of these changes aren't straightforward, and there are some unique elements in different locations. It's fiddly and error-prone work which needs to be correct, and transparency is extremely important. Let's be honest, we're currently putting in place something that should have been in place years ago, and it's creating a foundation from which we can go forward. However, we are where we are, and whilst the service charge increases are not subject to the same limitations as increases on rent, we need to ensure they remain affordable, and there's a difficult balance to be struck. So a little bit of background that's in the paper. Historically, service charges were increased on a percentage basis to try and recover the costs. And service charges traditionally have been restricted to sheltered schemes or decommissioned sheltered schemes that are now in what's called general needs, so normal council housing. In April 2024, service charges were set in accordance with the rent and service charge policy and based on actual costs. So they're based on actual costs, but they're still a reasonable way from recovering actual costs. This process enables us in the long term to recover the full costs, but also ensures that the council can claim a fair and accurate recording and enables an open and transparent dialogue with tenants. Just a couple of comments on affordability. 72% of general needs tenants are either on housing benefit or universal credit housing element, and 54% of sheltered tenants. And some external work has recently been done to try and benchmark the affordability of our rent plus our planned service charges, and that research has looked quite positive in that we're well within the affordability bands. A consultation was carried out for this exercise with a response rate of about 10%, and as you might expect, had a mixed response. About 29 residents have queried the appropriateness of the charges, and these are all being worked through, and each one takes a bit of time to work through. So there's a couple of elements of this paper. First of all, there's a change to the policy, which I think is uncontroversial, but what it's saying is that for larger assets like carpets, furniture, laundry machines, lifts, door entry systems, we need a way of recovering that gradually through a service charge rather than have an expense on a large item pop up in 1 year. So this, the change in policy proposes that we can do that, and it also proposes the introduction of an admin fee of 10% on the work. So that's in the policy. In terms of the actual charges, I think it's useful to split the discussion between general needs and sheltered schemes. So in terms of the actual income that the council gets, most of it is from sheltered schemes. We're going to start with general needs because it's a little bit simpler. So what we're proposing to do here, and it mainly affects blocks, is to charge householders for communal fees that are incurred as part of the block maintenance. So this covers things like communal repairs and maintenance, communal health and safety, communal electricity, and some personal charges. And it's laid out very well in the report in Appendix D. So if you look there, you can see each block and you can see all the individual charges. I think this is a sensible thing to do based on the principle that effectively at the moment it's being subsidised by other residents. I do want to introduce a cap on this because we have to phase this. So I'm proposing that we and I'll summarise this at the end, but we're going to introduce an amendment to the recommendation. But for general needs, that will say that we will limit any increase to £500 a year, i.e. £9.61 a week. It only actually affects about half a dozen households, so it doesn't make any difference on the income, but we do need to put some kind of limit. And even that level will come as a shock to some tenants. On sheltered schemes, there's two elements here. There's the sort of what I might call the core service charge, and then there's the utility charges. So the proposal in this paper is that the core service charge will be limited to 5%, and the paper indicates where we are still significantly under recovering costs in quite a lot of areas. I think we do need to be careful about how we're increasing these service charges, so I fully support the 5% limit. If we now look at utility charges, so we've got communal utility charges for communal areas, and we've got personal utility charges. And I think the logic in the paper is that we're just the intermediary. We're just taking a bill and passing it on, and therefore we should pass the whole amount on. And I think in principle, over the longer term, this makes sense. It obviously is going to cause discussion, particularly about communal areas. But I don't think at the moment we can have this completely uncapped. So I'm suggesting an amendment which would say, so the total, if I go through the whole recommendation, I'm suggesting we change recommendation 3.3, and that will now read, to improve the introduction of the service charges as per the plan set out in paragraph 1.5 above, except capping the increase in service charges in general needs housing at no more than £9.61 extra per week, £500 per year for any household, and capping the total service charges increase, i.e. the base service charge of 5% plus the communal utilities plus the personal utilities for any household in shelter schemes to a maximum of 10%. So in simple terms, anyone in shelter schemes won't pay more than 10% more than last year. And the final charge is to be improved in the HRA budget decision in February 2025. We've been passed around a bit of paper here that says we're expecting the utility charges to increase by about 12%. So I think that 10% should cover this off, but it's just to make sure within that there are no anomalies where we're suddenly charging a particular household some outrageous amount. I think we need to move forward with this. I know officers would probably prefer we went further this year. Next year I think we need to go further, but we all know the situation in our HRA. We have to recover the costs longer term. I think this is a big stride forward. We just need to do it in a phased way. Thank you.
So I'm assuming you're proposing, but we need a seconder. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Davis, thank you. Any questions from members of the Cabinet on this paper? I've got a couple, so I'll kick off then. Paragraph 5.1, it says that at the end of that paragraph, service charges can be added to social rent properties but not affordable rent properties where the rent is deemed to be inclusive of all charges. So my question is this, and I'm not sure whether Councillor Winch, you can answer this, or officers, but could this result in tenants in social rent properties actually paying more overall than those in affordable rent properties?
Good question. I am going to pass this one over.
Good morning, members. No, absolutely not. Members may or may not be aware that our social rents are significantly below our affordable rents, and in fact in the majority of cases are not even at social rent at the moment because of the changes to financing arrangements in 2012. I think, Rob, they're about 30% lower, is that correct? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I've also got a question on paragraph 10.1. There's a table there with figures of income to the HRA budget from general needs and the sheltered housing. How does that compare to the income to the HRA in this current year? Because there's no comparator there.
I'll get you to come in, Jenny, but I believe in the main the general needs service charge is new, and according to the bit of paper we've just passed rounds, the total increase is about 12% that we've got on this bit of paper. Jenny, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, the overall increase is around 12%, although it varies between each scheme. The other comment I'd make is, yes, whilst it is mostly new, we have had a few small general needs charges, so it won't be new to everybody, but it will be to a lot of residents on the general needs side.
Because the amendment on the paper is by household, we will end up knocking that down a bit more than the 10%, because anyone who's significantly above will come down further.
So I think what you're saying is overall there's a 12% increase in the income to the HRA from this change. Is that to sum up? Okay, thank you.
In 10.1,
yeah.
But because of our amendment, it will come down a little bit.
Okay. Anyone else got any questions from the Cabinet? I've got a question then on Appendix C. I've got to just find it now. It talks about communal repairs and maintenance. So just to clarify, when we do maintenance on an HRA property, we don't charge the tenant for that. We charge them rent. So in this situation, why are we charging them rent and the cost of the repair as well? Just need to understand that.
Because so this will be for communal areas in flatted blocks. So the rent isn't inclusive of those repairs and maintenance of the communal blocks. It's only the individual flats. And flats, as you will be aware, the rent in flats is significantly cheaper than houses, and that's one of the reasons.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Any further questions from Cabinet? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right. With regards to the administration fee, which I think has been set out in Appendix D, page 18, can we confirm that we're rounding down and making sure, I know there are only small amounts of pennies, but I think, for example, the fifth line down, I think that should be £1.29, not £1.30, if it's 10% on the different figures. Sorry to get a bit specific, but you know, it all adds up to somebody that's paying it. So I'm wondering what the question is, are we rounding down?
Do you want to leave that with us and we can check that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and my second question was with regards to the different blocks in the general needs and the different types of communal costs that they may or may not have, that we're going to be effectively introducing in some cases. Are we going to be making sure that it's very clear? Because I understand that when we did the original consultation to everybody, that there was a list of costs, and I can see that being quite confusing to some people, because they're going to be reading those costs and thinking, am I going to be getting these costs now? Whereas it may not be an appropriate cost at all for their building. So when we do go back and clarify the costs that we're introducing, will we be specifically going block by block for those specific charges?
Good morning, members. So yes, thank you for your questions. Just to tackle the first one, in terms of the rounding of the admin fee, I can see that there have been some rounding up. We could certainly round down. That's just a formula change, so I think we can accommodate that. And the other question was related to... My brain's gone completely blank.
Yes, thank you, Rob. So when we send out our rent letters, which we send out every year, we're going to be a lot more specific this year in terms of what those individual charges are. So in fact, we've really increased our transparency for residents this year across the board, not just those that are getting service charges, so they know what those charges are.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Scarf, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, if I could preface it by saying I welcome the introduction of this paper and welcome the work that's been done on it. I think it's long overdue. So congratulations to the team for that. I think it will raise a number of anomalies as we go along through, a few years, but hopefully we'll be able to tackle those. A couple of specific questions. Page 18, Appendix D, shows the general needs housing service charges and the charges per week and per year. In Stowmarket, there's one that stands out very much so, in that it's £2,092 per annum, or £40.22 per week, significantly higher than any of the others. So the question would be, is there anything we can do as a priority to mitigate some of those costs to Charles House, which has only got 6 properties within it, and I accept it is a pretty unique building. And question 2 really relates to the capping. In the papers, in one area it says aim to recover fully costs within 3 years, and in another area it says 2 to 5 years. So it's a question on how convinced are we, bearing in mind that costs will always go up each year, the base cost will always go up, that we will actually be moving to a system that within whatever timescale, 2 to 5 or 3 years, will fully recover those costs. How certain are we at this stage that that is likely? Are we likely to get an update next year that says, well, we're still so far away that we're likely to move the target? Because whilst I accept that tenants should pay for the services that they use, and tenants that don't receive those services should certainly not pay for it, I think there is an element of concern about how quickly we will be able to fully recover the costs and make it affordable for the tenants at the same time, which is a very difficult, it's almost squaring the circle.
But I think on general needs, it's a lot simpler, because we're literally talking about 6 or 7 households that are above the cap. Yeah, and I think what's good about this is it really highlights where we have actually got quite high costs, and that particular block that that is a ridiculous cost, both from the council's point of view and from the household's point of view, so that needs looking at. So I think that's feasible. I think for sheltered, that is not going to happen next year. That's going to happen over a number of years. We are under a lot of pressure on the HRA, and the point has been made a couple of times, which is a very significant point, that our base rent is low. So, and I think you have to look at the affordability on the base rent and the service charge. But I very much doubt we do it next year, but certainly the 2 to 3 years I think is feasible. because I think now we've got the data to see where we've got anomalies, we need to go and fix some of those anomalies. Deborah, do you want to come in?
Thank you. And the building you refer to is actually a beautiful Georgian building, I believe. And you know, this really indicates the need for us to carry out, you know, quite a detailed asset review to understand, you know, those properties which may not be suitable for us to hold within the HRA because of the cost, and also our ability to you know, retrofit them so they meet the EPC level 2030. On the other point about, you know, getting to full cost recovery, you know, what we would be proposing as officers to our portfolio holder is that, you know, there's a percentage increase every year over the actual cost. So we do reach full cost recovery. But I think it's fair to say, you know, this is a sort of a twin stream exercise, because whilst we're obviously eager to recover the full cost because of the strain on the HRA and because of the pressure on the tenants that are, you know, not receiving those services, we're also doing an exercise to understand where those costs are far too high. And it could be, for example, that the heating is left on all day in summer, and, you know, unfortunately we have cases like that where the residents turn it on, and, you know, we need to put devices over the switches so in summer they can't turn it on, or that kind of thing. So it's a sort of a twin stream exercise, if you like.
If I could come back, I certainly welcome what you've just said, because that was raised in one of the briefings. But what will the council do? Because one of the areas for concern, I mean, a lot of the tenants are covered fully for the cost increases that this will incur. The tenants that aren't covered, it's a big shock over a period of time and has a cumulative effect. What will we be doing as a council? Will we, when we send out the service charges and state what those are specific to each block, which I really welcome for clarity purposes, that's certainly something we should be doing. What will we do in terms of support for those tenants to, I mean, they may be not in receipt of a benefit, but may actually be entitled to that benefit, or may become entitled to that benefit because of the cost increases over the period of time. So what will we do, because I hope that we will, to advise the tenant of their recourse of action? You know, what can we do to go out with the letter?
I mean, there's two elements there. Are you covered by benefits? The personal charges you're not covered for at all. I think we always refer to our cost of living support as part of this process. But do you want to elaborate?
Yes, thank you. And as Councillor Winch alluded to, we do have cost of living support. Additional to that, in housing, we have tenancy sustainment officers, and those officers, along with our income officers, provide targeted support for those people, you know, who are having financial difficulty. And we do use AI software in housing which can predict those people which are likely to go into arrears. So that means we can intervene earlier and, you know, and support those households. So absolutely we'll be doing that, and we do that already.
Councillor Warboy, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it follows on from what Councillor Scarf was talking about. Within each block, you're going to have a diverse group of tenants. And reading this, there's going forward, that I think there's an expectation that there's flexibility in the range of services that may be offered within a particular block. I'm just wondering what mechanism is in place to make sure that it's equitable among the block, because some tenants might say, for instance, they want an improved communal space, which would incur extra costs, but not all tenants may feel they want to pay those extra charges. So it's about the mechanism that will be in place to make sure it's equitable within the block. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at them.
No, I don't want. So when it comes to communal charges, it's really, really difficult because we're not allowed within the legislation to charge one person more or less than the other. That said, it's a really good point, and there are circumstances where we can consult with tenants on charges. So if I give you a couple of examples, firstly, at the moment we don't have cleaning schemes in our blocks, and we absolutely should, and the regulator is very clear, and it's one of the tenant satisfaction measures that, you know, communal areas should be in a good state of repair and should be clean. So at some point we will have to think about that, and it's at that point where in the communal blocks, instead of saying to residents, right, you know, you have to clean your areas, we can say to them, we can provide a cleaning service for you, we can do it once a week, once a month, once every 6 months, and these are the different costs. And we can consult and talk to them about that and absolutely take their views on board. So that will be up to them. So that's the first example. The second example, which is probably more important in terms of cost and service, is the service we provide to sheltered housing. So at the moment we provide, a scheme manager who will, contact the tenants daily and provide that service. And we know that, people are becoming more and more independent, older people are working. They don't necessarily want somebody knocking on the door, checking how they are every day. What they might want is they might want someone to check on them once every 2 weeks, or, in some cases once every 3 months, or actually never. So, to really sort of get hold of that and understand, what residents want and what the costs are, we will be carrying out a review of that service this year, and we hope to be able to significantly reduce the costs for our sheltered tenants, and that in turn will help when we increase the service charges for those, those charges that like, the communal gas and electric and fire safety checks, etc. So that will help even it out for them, hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that helpful question and clarification. If there's no further questions, then we can open this item up for debate. Anyone like to kick things off? Councillor Stringer, thank you.
Yeah, won't take too long over this. Welcome the report. Thank you for the forensic level of detail that's gone into this. Can't underestimate the amount of work that's gone into this, and it's long overdue. It was sort of a nettle that no one really wanted to grasp, I think, and we've now firmly grasped it. I think it also highlights the importance now of energy conservation measures that we can build in and have built in the past, and how there might be then more clamouring for, can we have some more please, because it's now directly affecting us on the ground. So I welcome all the work. It still will be a challenge. This isn't job done now, as it is where the sort of hard work begins in terms of communicating this decision and trying to help those most affected as we can. But I think it needed to be done, and thank you for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to echo Councillor Stringer's comments around the level of detail in the report. The questions that I thought I had were actually answered in the report, and I just read it more closely. So thanks for that. The observation I wanted to make again is linked to Councillor Stringer's around the sheltered schemes being one of our two highest carbon emitters. So whether or not the first review that you talked about in response to Councillor Scarf's question about the outlier at Stowmarket, and I noticed the next highest one. We did some quick research on the hoof. The next highest one was the second one listed, which is at Vernal Avenue. which when I looked at it is a purpose-built, looks like a purpose-built building, so doesn't. So I could understand the justification for the Georgian building and the additional costs associated there, but not so much with that contemporary building. And I'm wondering whether that review would be holistic across the whole estate to pick up some of the anomalies that might exist there as well, and how maybe some of the outcome of that review might lead us to, particularly not in relation to that, but in relation to the sheltered schemes in particularly, might lead us to some recommendations for making improvements to the to the environmental aspects of those properties so that they could assist us with our climate ambitions.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll just make a couple of comments then from the chair. So, echo other cabinet colleagues' thanks to the officers for the detail in this report. There's obviously a lot of work gone into that. Clearly, we would not be looking at this in any detail if we had a much better, healthier financial position in our HRA. But we have got to move towards a sustainable financial HRA, and this is one of the measures that needs to be grasped, as Councillor Stringer said. But clearly, where residents and tenants have not been paying this before, it will be a shock for them. So I think that's why we need to very sensibly put a cap on this and only move to full cost recovery gradually and with full consultation with the residents. And obviously from the consultation responses in the paper, it's clear that not everyone is clear of the need for this. Some people are not even clear whether they are claiming benefits. So I think Councillor Scarf's point is really important, that we need to make sure we're fully communicating the opportunities for people to claim the benefits that are due to them alongside this. Just in terms of moving to the vote then, we have amended, or Councillor Winch has amended the recommendations. Do we have the full wording of the amendment for me to read out? Or can you read it out, Beth? Is that okay?
Sorry.
We'll just have that in a second.
So it's 3.1 and 3.2 are set out in the report, and then 3.3 is amended to read, to approve the introduction of service charges as per the plan set out in paragraph 1.5 above, except capping the increases in service charges in general needs housing at no more than £9.61 extra per week, £500 per annum for any household, capping the total service charging increase, i.e. base service charging at 5% plus communal utilities plus personal utilities for any household in sheltered schemes to a maximum of 10% versus last year, and the final charges to be approved in the HRA budget decision in February 25.
Thank you. And I will now ask the governance officers to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 5 votes for. That's carried.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Deborah, Jenny, Rob, for your work on that. We move on to item 10. This is BCA/24/40, Babergh and Mid-Suffolk Economic Strategy. Di Robinson, as the Director of Sustainable Communities and Economy, was going to be here, but she's stuck on a train, so I'm grateful we've got Michelle Gordon and Nicola Healy here to support this item. But I'll now invite the Cabinet Member for Thriving Communities, Councillor Teresa Davis, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I would like to thank our Economic Development team for all their hard work on this. And I understand we're now reaching more and more businesses and organisations than ever, and it's down to their dedication and skills. Our economic strategy has been developed with our specific districts in mind. encompasses both Babergh's and Mid-Suffolk's ruralness and the opportunities and obstacles that brings to our local businesses and organisation, such as transport and digitalisation. The strategy aims to integrate national and regional goals within our local economy while still retaining and providing a voice to our unique, thriving entrepreneurial owners and workers of our district. I'm hoping it shows that we listened and formed a strategy that reflects our strengths and looks to support and minimise our weaknesses. We have many ambitions from this strategy, and our team are now working on the action plan that will aim to bring about these ambitions in a practical and measurable way. This action plan will be coming back to Cabinet in March to ensure we're ready for the new financial years ahead. Some of our ambitions, of course, cannot be achieved on our own, but by setting them out here in this strategy, we can look to join with other initiatives or seek out regional partners to request funding for large projects. To obtain, for example, a reduction in carbon emissions, such as by providing more localised processing plants for our food and agricultural sector, or improving bus and rail connectivity and upgrades to reduce HGV and car usage. Large projects such as this would not only reduce the burden on the planet, but bring positive, more sustainable growth within the districts they serve for years to come, saving on costs for local business, enabling them to thrive, and at the same time, better for people, better for the community, and better for the planet. You will see within the strategy that we have consulted more as a council than in the past, and this has formed 5 clear opportunities for growth and established 18 priorities under people, place and prosperity. We have also ensured that we complemented existing strategies, such as our carbon reduction, well-being and local planning, to name a few. Again, I am hoping it shows we listened. Mid-Suffolk is a great place to start a business, as we are a place that is there for both its people and planet's needs. We want to nurture and grow that perception. Our approach is to create an economy that serves its people's needs in a sustainable way to make a great place to live. We have many exciting opportunities on the horizon, from investment within our largest town to the development of our Skills and Innovation Centre to impact all of Mid-Suffolk, along with the establishment of more rural transport, such as the taxi bus and Rural Connect. And we want to do more and partner with more to encourage our economy to be further supported and resilient, especially following the national economic announcements hitting our businesses, the potential new unitary councils of the future, and the ongoing climate change progression, such as the flooding we have faced, and more specifically, the changes our farming industry faces. We will need to work together. Mid-Suffolk is 85% agricultural land, with over 400 agricultural holdings, and this needs clear support. With over 5,000 businesses in Mid-Suffolk, 97% of which are micro businesses, it doesn't just stop there with agriculture. And we won't restrict any business who wants to settle and can sustainably grow in Mid-Suffolk. We will look to support them and link them to groups and partners who will help them thrive. In summary, I would like to propose our above proposals, but also I'd like to amend the last one. So I propose that we adopt the new strategy with a review to receiving the action plan in March, which will set a clear direction for sustainable growth for Mid-Suffolk.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Don't all stand at once. Okay, Councillor Stringer, thank you very much. So, any questions from Cabinet members on this item? Councillor Winch.
Yeah, at the beginning, the options considered were the normal do nothing, but should we go with the Suffolk economic strategy or should we do our own one? I think it makes sense that we've done our own one, so I'm fully supportive of that. But can you say something about how it does link to the Suffolk economic strategy? So, for example, I know that from the Suffolk Chamber of Commerce, their number one issue is the Ely-Hawley transport rail link, but we sort of don't mention that sort of thing. So how do the two things link?
Thank you, Councillor Winch, for your question. I may refer to my specialists, but in general, if you look at the strategy on page 17, enabling infrastructure. The strategy will be in overarching general terms. The action plan will bring into the fore the more specifics. Obviously, we want the Hawley Junction. It is a priority for us. So, as a strategy, it is linking in with the other strategies, and it has to be more general when we cannot do it alone and we would need partners. But I will refer for a fuller answer.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so we've been working very closely with the Suffolk Economic Strategy Development Team and the Suffolk Business Board to ensure that our strategy aligns with the priorities contained within the Suffolk Economic Strategy. So with specific reference to the transport and infrastructure priorities that Suffolk and the Suffolk Business Board, Suffolk County Council and the Suffolk Chamber have in relation to, for example, the Ely and Hawley. Within the transport and infrastructure section on our strategy, whilst we haven't necessarily named individual projects, what we've done is looked at broad priorities for ensuring that we work with partners to enable the appropriate infrastructure to allow our economy to thrive. What we'll do through the development of the action plan is name some of those specific projects and explain exactly how we're going to work with Suffolk Chamber through their transport action plan to be able to facilitate the delivery of the upgrades to Ely and Hawley as an example. But we've been working very closely with the Suffolk team on their action and infrastructure plan to ensure that we align with it where possible.
Any other questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Scarf, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Winch has directly asked the question in the first place, which was how it linked with the Suffolk strategy. But if I could just say, I certainly welcome the move for our strategy to be place-shaped and stand out perhaps as a different example of an economic strategy compared to some of the other authorities in Suffolk, because I think that is the right way forward. So I welcome that, and I look forward to certainly reading the action plan and the more detailed information that will be contained within it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, then I think we can open this. Oh, Councillor Warboys, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a question. I think this is a really very well produced document, and my question is really about how it's going to be communicated with the public at large. Is it a paper copy, or is it only going to be online?
I think we can ask officers what the plans are. Michelle, can you answer that one?
Yes, thank you. So as part of the development of the economic strategy, we did a series of consultation events and a range of engagement with businesses. What we promised during that consultation process is that we would come back to those businesses and re-engage once the strategy is published, so that it was the start of the conversation as opposed to a one-off engagement. We will be re-engaging with all of those businesses, sharing the information around the publication of the economic strategy via our newsletter, working with with our comms team, working with the Suffolk Chamber, the Suffolk economy team, the FSB, the NFU and other partners to share our ambitions for what we want the economy of the two districts to look like. On a day-to-day basis, we will then be using the strategy to shape our activities and our engagement with businesses, so it will be more visible in our actions as opposed to the document itself. The document will also be shared with our strategic partners, including MHCLG and our DBT colleagues in government, to show where our local vision and ambition is in terms of what we want to see delivered for our districts.
Thank you. Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Chair. this could be a moment where I'm just going to be incredibly embarrassed because I've missed it. But what I don't see on here is a date period, and it could be that we've been deliberately circumspect about putting dates on, given we don't know where we'll be quite from the perspective of being a district council. But conventionally in a strategy, we'll say strategy for this particular period. Is that been deliberately, yes, left out? Okay, and in that case, I'm wondering about how the action plan might be allowed to be smart if we don't know what period within which we're going to deliver it. So that's the question. Thanks.
I'll refer to Michelle.
Thank you, Councillor. So it was a deliberate intent not to put a date period on the strategy, but what we've said within the introduction to the strategy is that we would like it to be reflective of changes that are happening at a national level and a regional level, so that it was broad enough to take into consideration everything that's going on at the moment, because there are a lot, as we know, there are a lot of changes happening which we couldn't predict during the development of the strategy. In terms of the action plan, we do want that to be more specific. So we will have dates for delivery of specific items. They will be short, medium and long term. And the short items especially will have very specific dates and measurable outcomes to show how we are delivering against the ambitions set out within the strategy.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Davis, I wonder if you could ping your amended wording over to Bethany for governance while we have the debate. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So we can now open this item up for debate. Who'd like to speak first? Councillor Stringer, thank you.
Thank you. I was just trying to look on the County Council's website for their economic strategy, and it sadly doesn't look like it's updated yet with a new one. It's still got the Suffolk and Norfolk one, which that needs to be sorted out. One of the criticisms I had of the County Council economic strategy was it identified the huge amount of trade and GDP in the arts and cultural sector, but it had no mention of it within the plan. Our plan mentions our arts and cultural and heritage plan, but it equally doesn't have a huge amount within the economic strategy of the opportunities that arts and culture and creative industries can bring forward. Just can I be assured that we will be looking at that arts and cultural strategy, because we do signpost it within our within this strategy to make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry. Yes, absolutely. What we didn't want to do within this strategy was duplicate the existing culture, heritage and visitor economy strategy. So we've referenced it within the document itself as one of the existing strategies that we will align with. And when we come to developing the action plan, we will ensure that the actions are aligned as well. But we will be continuing to deliver the culture, heritage and visitor economy strategy alongside the economic strategy. It doesn't replace it.
Anyone else like to contribute to the debate? I probably should just mention that I am a member of the Suffolk Business Board. When I became leader here, alongside that came the potential to join the board of NALEP, the Norfolk and let me get this right, Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership, yeah. And then when that was disbanded, the members of the LEP were put onto the Suffolk Business Board and the Norfolk Business Board. So I've been part of the discussions for the formation of the Suffolk Economic Strategy, which has been a very interesting exercise. But I think it's really important that we have our own economic strategy for this area, distinct and different, but integrated with the overall Suffolk economic strategy. So I'm really glad that we've developed this, and I welcome this document. If there's no further debate, then we can move to the vote. I will just read out the recommendation. So 3.1, that members endorse the clear long-term vision and accompanying set of ambitions, aims and objectives set out in this strategy. 3.2, that the economic development strategy attached as Appendix 1 is passed to Council with the recommendation to approve it. 3.3, the Director of Sustainable Communities and Economy, in consultation with the relevant Cabinet member, be delegated authority to make amendments and updates to the strategy in response to changing needs. And 3.4, the Director for Sustainable Communities and Economy, in consultation with the relevant Cabinet member, be delegated authority to develop an associated action plan to ensure delivery against the ambitions contained with the strategy, and the action plan will be brought back to Cabinet in March for approval. So that's the 3.4 amended. So I'll now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 5 votes for. That's carried.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the officers for your work on that item. So that concludes the business of the meeting. The date and time of the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 11th of February at 9:30 a.m. Are we back in here or not sure? Well, that will be confirmed. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is now closed.